Professor Monti, thank you so much for your time. Do you see the need for a haircut on Greek debt?
Probably yes. It would not be the first time in history, for sure. It may well be a voluntary action on the part of large components of the international banking system that would probably give proof that there is a sacrifice on the part of the private sector as well, so that that will induce some reluctant governments to go ahead with providing further money to Greece, being able to explain to their electors, to their members of parliaments, that after all this is done in the interest of the strength of the eurozone. But it's not taxpayers alone who put up the money, it's also a contribution of the private sector and of the banks which is there.
So is default for Greece at this stage a realistic option for you?
Default, no, that I think will be avoided at all costs. Some reprofiling or rescheduling, yes. And what needs to be clear in my view is that, number one, it is impossible to imagine any Greek government that right now would be prepared and able to do more in terms of austerity and of structural reforms than the Papandreou government. Secondly, that taking the long view, what has been achieved by Greece on the background, of course, of years of indiscipline, but what is being achieved now is in itself a testimony that the euro does bring about a culture of stability, as was in the original German project, because Greece alone, left to itself, would never ever undertaken so strong structural measures and austerity measures.
But as time is kicking, do you think there is the possibility of actually a breakup from the euro area? So do you envisage a Greek returning to the drachma?
No, at any rate I believe it would be a mistake, and probably it would be resisted also by many actors, by many players within Germany, because well, it's difficult to imagine Greece only as a standalone. So if we go to the idea, let's say, of a two-tier eurozone system, with some southern countries belonging to a weaker euro area, I think the main concerns would be, first of all, with German industry, which should be very concerned about going back to the era of competitive devaluations. So I think that this prospect of possibly having countries leaving the eurozone or a breaking up of the eurozone itself in two areas may appear to be an easy way out, but will be extremely difficult to implement and will trigger many resistances. So other actions, in my view, will be taken before this one is really considered.
The risk of a contagion, how realistic is it for you?
To some extent there has already been contagion, although not the sick countries are sick to the same extent. And it is precisely to avoid contagion to become a more risky fact that all the measures have been put in place, however, always a bit late by the European Union.
We're here in Russia, and one of the topics on the table on any debate is inflation. Inflation is rising everywhere. At the same time, there is the necessity, almost the need to raise rates. How do you see the situation going, especially in Europe?
Well, we must pay tribute to the ECB, which certainly over the years has kept inflation low and has set the background for inflation to stay low. Certainly there are pressures coming also from the supply side in terms of higher commodity prices and energy prices. I think in Europe, at least, the ECB will continue also under the new president in a few months, Mario Draghi, to follow a very cautious path. In other parts of the world, that may not be necessarily the case. Other parts of the world, the US in the first place, we have seen the Fed during the Greenspan years is a bit less concerned on the inflation objective.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.